attending in person as well as those who might be attending online. My name is Jeff McDonald. I am Chair of Planning, Development and Heritage for the town of Stratford, as well as a councillor for Ward 2. I just want to indicate at the outset that if anyone wishes to comment formally on tonight's proceedings or on anything from tonight's meeting, the town will accept written responses provided directly to the Planning Department by email or in writing until 12 o'clock on Friday, December the 19th, 2025. Please indicate that comments provided on any social media platform are not captured as part of that written submission process. After the application and information and presentation is gone through tonight, there will be an open floor for any questions or comments on the proposed bylaw. Questions via social media will be monitored and submitted to be read into the record and answered. To ask any questions, please use the comment field on either YouTube or Facebook where you might be viewing our live stream. As this is a public meeting, you are required to provide your name and address when asking a question. So before I turn the microphone over to our long-range planner, Mr. Scott Carnell, seated to my right, I just want to talk a little bit about how the meeting will go tonight. I just want to indicate that to keep it going in a smooth and orderly fashion, the following practices and customs are going to be observed. Comments and presentations ought to focus on the nature of the merits or likely consequences of the proposed application and must avoid the personalities or motives behind this bylaw or its presentation. Comments should be focused on the presentation at hand and not on prior presentations or proposals. All comments and questions are made to myself as chair, and I'll decide who is the best equipped to answer those questions. People who are attending this meeting should refrain from disturbing the assembly when presentations are being made. And presentations are going to be limited to 5 minutes for individuals or 10 minutes for groups. So we are here to discuss an anticipated or proposed short-term rental bylaw that would be in effect within the municipality of Stratford. I will turn the matter over now to our long-range planner, Mr. Scott Carnell, to provide an overview of the town's findings to date, as well as some of the key points of the proposed short-term rental bylaw. Mr. Carnell, when you're ready.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Yeah, thank you all for attending tonight. So this is the proposed draft of the short-term rental accommodations regulations. These regulations will be included into new official plan and zoning and development bylaw, which is currently underway right now. It won't be attached to the current and existing zoning development bylaw. Right. And so, yeah, this is been ongoing for for over a year. It's been a little delayed getting to this point, but now we're here and we're hoping to have a good draft and a good conversation and go from there. So the short-term rental accommodation bylaw was made available for viewing on the town's website on November 28th. And we do invite the community to provide comments and submit any questions. There was a change to the draft that was posted on the November 28th that was posted yesterday. There was some confusion from our end regarding existing operations in the draft. And so with conversations with the province this week, we've discussed the ongoing operations that are currently licensed by the tourism PEI. And so all of those operations will be continue to operate as they are. We will honor those licenses, and they'll continue to operate until any change of ownership regarding those properties. So there won't be any change to those. There won't be any renewal or attached to those. Any renewal would be regarding the tourism PEI's ongoing renewals. I mean, obviously, they're still required to do the monitoring and the upgrades, updates to those registered licenses. But that's through the province. This current draft bylaw will be regarding the new regulations that going forward once our new zoning and development bylaw is adopted. Yeah. So on to the next page. Why is that not moving? Okay. Yeah, so our definition that we have drafted means an entire single dwelling or double dwelling unit that is offered as a temporary accommodation to one guest or group of guests for compensation for a period of 28 days or less, but does not include a bed and breakfast. No short-term rental accommodation isn't permitted in town unless it is located in a single dwelling or one of the units of a double dwelling. The property owner resides in that single dwelling or the double dwelling unit as their primary residence, and the short-term rental accommodation is used only when it's not occupied by the property owner. Where a short-term rental is not permitted is any multi-unit dwellings, recreational vehicles, accessory dwellings, secondary suites, accessory structures or building or a temporary structure. No person shall operate a short-term rental accommodation within the town without holding a valid development permit issued by the town. No person shall accommodate any dwelling unit for compensation for a period of 28 days or less unless the accommodations are located in a bed and breakfast or a short-term rental accommodation has been approved by the town. Upon receiving a development permit to operate a short-term rental accommodation, the property owner shall submit an application to the province for a license under the Tourism Industry Act and its regulations, or any successive legislation such the terminology change from the province. No person shall operate a short-term rental accommodation within the town without holding a valid provincial license issued under the Tourism Industry Act and its regulations, or any successive legislation, and no property owner shall operate more than one short-term rental accommodation in the town, with one exception that you live in one of the two units of a double dwelling, and it can be rented on one side and you can live in the other property. This has come from we did a survey of last year and a few of you attended that meeting. So a lot of that regarding the one unit or the two unit goes from support over by the residents, saying 64% of respondents overall supported restrictions on maximum number of STRs a host can operate, with 49% extremely supportive of this. 52% supported restrictions on allowing STRs in host primary residence, and so that's kind of why we're looking at it in our draft. And it is about protecting the long-term housing for residents and protecting the residential character of neighborhoods. And then 55% giving property owners more options for revenue controls. So this is a short and sweet presentation, I guess. I mean, it is, the bylaw is quite simple in regards to what it can permit. So yeah, I mean, I know there's a few that will have questions, and we're happy to have those conversations, but as an overall, if anybody wants me to go back over any points, we can do that.
So, Mr. Cardinal, if I might,
Sure.
just before we turn the floor over to the public, I have two questions, I guess, just for absolute clarity. So, if you could offer perhaps in, a phrase or two, where specifically will short-term rentals be allowable under the draft bylaw?
It'll be in the residences where it's a single detached unit or a double dwelling, which will probably be in more of a mature neighborhoods. No townhouses or any kind of apartments will be allowed going forward in the new bylaw. I know there's a few of those units currently in operation, and we won't be looking to change any of that unless the ownership of those units does come to change.
Okay.
So should an operation in those apartments do change, then the new owner would have to apply under the new regulations.
Okay. And under the proposed bylaw, how many short-term rentals would one individual be allowed to operate?
You can, it's up to one or the two sides of the dwelling. So if you lived in one side of a double dwelling, like if you owned a semi-detached unit and you own both sides, you could rent out both if you're away for a different time or period.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so with that in mind, what I would like to do at this point in time is I would like to open the floor for comments or presentations or questions from the public. And I'll just ask you, should you have any such comment, question, presentation, to please present yourself at the microphone, provide your name and address so we can have that recorded. And just to, as well, make sure that microphone's on so we have that accurately recorded.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Jenny Much, and I
That microphone.
own 27 Hopetoun Road. Is this on?
I'm not sure.
There might need to press
There
the
may be a
button.
button. It's on? Okay, wonderful, great. Sorry to interrupt you.
I just have a question, just clarification. The property I own is a 3-story heritage home, and currently I have 2 Airbnbs, one on the 2nd floor and one on the 3rd floor. And I am licensed and did all that, and I've been doing it for 7 years or so. I'm just clarifying that I can keep on going along. I'm going to be grandfathered in. Because it is a different setup than what you're speaking of.
Yes, so
Okay.
we're honoring the current licenses as they are and
Okay.
have been approved by the tourism PEI. They would be subject to change once you change ownership, and then that would probably be a little bit different for that new owner of that property.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, the new zoning development bylaw is currently under review, so we're still going through the final stages of that document. So this this summary of the short-term rental will be attached to the new zoning bylaw. So there will be a final, a public meeting once that zoning document
yeah.
is presented to
Yeah.
to town as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Much. Yes, sir.
Hi there, my name is Jordan Tebow. I'm just located at Lupin Lane here in Stratford. I just had a question. I was just wondering some of the other factors that were considered when developing this proposed bylaw around like limiting just to one rather than allowing maybe for a few, like for an owner to own more than like 1 or 2. Were there any factors considered in making that decision?
Yeah, so that when we did the survey last year, we did have an overall support of limiting the units to that primary resident only.
I guess more in terms in how it relates to the current structure of the town of Stratford. I just guess in comparison to perhaps Charlottetown, right, which it'd be similar in ways around just like, you know, owning one single unit. My idea would be like they're in a completely different situation in terms of the structure of the city versus the town of Stratford. So I guess, is there anything that was particularly done outside of those statistics that pertain more to what Stratford has to offer versus other jurisdictions with similar bylaws?
There was a number of review that was done last year. So there were studies that were done by the consultants at the time. But there was an overwhelmingness to like kind of protect some of the residential, and also knowing that we need to make options for more of a permanent rental units as well. So that was some of the factors that I included, so.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Sorry, I'll just add to that, and I think I agree with everything Mr. Carnell noted. I just want to indicate that within that review, what happened was there was a jurisdictional review where consultants that we retained had looked at other jurisdictions or other municipalities of a similar size and makeup demographically and, you know, geographically that might be similar to Stratford in the maritime area, and I think it's just the Maritimes. I could be wrong about that. Okay, and just about what models were working best in those jurisdictions, who chose to regulate short-term rentals. Not all do, certainly, but out of those who have chosen to regulate, the owner-occupied, for lack of a better word, model was the one that was achieving the most success in the form of that regulation, but also compliance with provincial licensing, because we didn't want anything too onerous, and we wanted to make sure that we're responding to what our residents have said in the survey as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess just some additional comments. I don't know what the appetite is of the planning department to make any sort of additions or propose any additional units that somebody, one property owner could own. But I guess my comments would be, from my perspective, it does look a little short-sighted, if I may add, just in the sense of, again, I know there's many factors that were considered when the consulting company probably made their proposal. I just look at it as, you know, our current climate within housing is quite different than it was even just a year or two ago in terms of available units. But at the same time, if you just look at the way Stratford's developing it as a whole, you know, we're developing the community campus. You know, we're continuing to expand. You know, that community campus is going to house, you know, tournaments, you know, events, you know, many different things that'll bring a lot to Stratford in general. And you know, unfortunately, we don't have anywhere to host people who come from off island, right? Just a comparison to Charlottetown, right? Like they have hotels, motels, many more bed and breakfasts, you know. So in terms of supporting our local community, allowing for growth, you know, I think that's there's an opportunity there to you know, support that with people who come in as guests. Beyond that, I don't know the exact number, but I do think the number of registered units within Stratford right now would probably be considerably low in percentage-wise compared to the actual like long-term, you know, housing that we have. So again, I just think that it's something that should seriously be considered to add additional units that somebody could own. Certainly not looking at like 10 or 15, but even like 2 or 3 to make that availability happen. Because I mean, how far away are we from adding, you know, hotels, motels, accommodations to bring guests here, right? You know, just for example, like I know there's other reasons behind the development, but you look at somewheres like Finley's, like that was a restaurant that you know, wasn't able to survive. Lone Oak this year up at the golf course, that's not able to operate year round. Like there's things that are happening within the town that show that there's not that buy-in from elsewhere outside the town, and I think this is an opportunity to expand beyond that. But anyway, I just thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, sir. So what I'll just say is that I think a lot of great points that you made. I would encourage you to write in, provide some written submissions so that the town can consider it. And of course, just so everyone is aware, and I think if it's not clear, this is a draft process. This is not the end product. And so we are looking for exactly what, you know, you're suggesting is comments and alternatives so that we can consider those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thank you, and I would strongly encourage that additional units be considered. So
Thank you. Please, yes.
I'd like to speak to that situation you brought up. Just to say that this is a new bylaw, and it's not unusual for a new bylaw with the potential impact that this can have to start out with a tempering kind of situation where you want to start out slow and easy, feel how it goes throughout the next year or so, and if things change dramatically or there's a need for change, then there's always an ability to do that. So we'd rather start out a little slow and temper it than go too deep and then try to cut it back, which makes it really difficult then. So that's one of the reasons why we're taking it slow right now and starting out with the draft and see how it goes from there. Thank you.
Shaman Ferrero, 132 Stratford Road. I have a series of questions here. I'll try to make them clear and concise, and for the sake of time, appreciate clear, concise answers. You asked for writing only there, and the survey participated in the session last November. I just want to clarify, where does the session last November with about 100 people at the emergency facility fit in the data here for the survey?
So just so I can understand your question, you're wondering where these numbers came from?
No, I'm wondering where the input from the 100 people or so at the emergency facility last November on this session with the consultant present fits inside of this survey number.
Well,
I don't know if you can.
I mean, the survey did, those points came across in the survey, so this does come from that survey that was done.
I don't remember performing any survey other than the verbal session, so.
There was one
next
post
question.
online that was out for 3 weeks. That was online, posted on this town's website.
So the input at the session didn't reflect in the draft, only the written survey reflected
It was,
in the draft.
it was reflected in the what we heard report that led to the initial stats of the draft, yes.
So again, to clarify, the input at the community session helped craft the survey, and it's the survey that
No.
then helped craft the draft.
No, the survey and the conversation were done at the same time, and that was then drafted into what we heard report that led towards the initial.
Okay, you asked him to submit something in writing, so is what we're sharing here today verbally not being considered?
It is, it's
Okay,
just,
thank you.
it's always helpful.
Just to clarify, where is clause 341 A, B, C, F, and H, and clause 361 E?
Are you referring to the draft bylaw?
Yes, it specifies items listed in these clauses and requirements
Oh,
in
that
these
would,
clauses.
that's attached to the new draft zoning bylaw. So, sorry, that's not attached on this draft document.
Okay,
That
so
would be
it's
part of.
not in this section, okay?
No.
I did find the presentation a little confusing, that you didn't follow and read the bylaw in full, and you didn't have you had bullet points, but not actual sections there to identify where we were. I think this should be represented, and we actually read it in full would be fantastic. If I can understand correctly, single dwellings permitted, duplex dwellings permitted, triplexes don't permit it.
No,
Okay. In-law suites not permitted?
no.
Okay. You used individual, this says property owner. Where does a business that owns a resident fit if that business has the registered office as the residence?
Well, it's defined as the primary resident of the property, so it would be the property owner.
Corporation one owns property one, and that is their registered office. Can that be a short-term rental?
I'd have to clarify that one.
I don't know. Yeah, we'd have to look at that for sure. Yeah.
December 2nd, there was a bylaw that came out online. This is dated December 10th. What changed specifically between this?
Well, as I said at the beginning, that when initially the first draft, there was a renewal process, and we wasn't looking at keeping the initial units that are currently operational. So we was doing a fresh application. So in conversation with the province, we are honoring the current operations to stay open, and we aren't challenging that.
Okay. What's the max timeline that the town has when somebody submits for a permit that you have to provide a response, either approval or denial?
Sorry?
I put in a submission to the town to get approved for a short-term rental. I see nothing in here that tells me what timeline to expect to get a feedback of either a yes or a no from the town.
Oh, okay, good question.
I don't think we would put that in the bylaw.
So it's just subjective and could pen forever saying we're looking into it?
Well, we don't do that with regular applications, so it would
No.
probably, we try and go for applications as we can.
Okay. To Jordan's point, where do visitors stay in Stratford?
Where do residents stay?
No, where do visitors stay? Tourists, where do they stay in Stratford?
Well, I don't, I mean, it could be at one of the non-conforming uses that are already present within the town of Stratford. I'm not sure what you mean. I
I'm
mean,
saying somebody wants to come to PEI, they want to stay in Stratford, where do they
Sure.
stay?
We're very limited right now in any hotels or motels, so that's obviously an issue. But
So to his point then, why are we limiting the ability to increase available accommodations to bring visitors and tourists to Stratford?
Well, I think I answered that starting out. Now, we want to start this thing out slow so we have better control of it. We don't want to have a transient population throughout Stratford. I'm not saying that's negative, but I can guarantee you that residents will not be pleased if we overpopulate with a lot of short-term rentals.
Do you have data to support that?
No, it's a fact that I know. I've worked in planning for over 30-some years, so I've seen the situation happen in other
I'm a
areas.
resident, and I would support as many Airbnbs as we can put here. So
That's you as an individual.
I think I'm going to suggest to you, sir, that you're in the minority, which is fine,
how many people participated in the survey?
more
I
than
don't know.
one.
Yeah.
Okay, but how many? You're telling
don't
me
know.
6 and 10, so how many in total? Was 10 people participating in the survey?
No, I think it was over 100 people that we did submit a survey, yeah.
So the survey is just based on input of 100 out of 10,000?
Well, that's what people submitted, right? If that's the responses we get.
Okay.
It was open to everyone to submit in that.
All right, I'd love to see definitions included in this, and I'd love to see a representation where we read it in full in sequence, because I did find this confusing in the presentation, but thank you for your time.
Just before you go, to assist, like, you mean definitions in the bylaw?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the short-term rental definition that you presented actually inside the bylaw. I find it interesting you have it there, but we can't include it here. I would like to know the definition of a property owner, because it's unclear if that's an individual or a business. I'd like to see the definitions, everything here. I'd like to see the clauses that are being referenced that aren't included in this, included in this.
I absolutely would agree with you
Yep.
about that.
So, thank you.
That's fair.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greg Heckbert, and I live in McDonald Road, or I have a house there for rent. I just gonna keep it quick. We've already done this year, whatever it was ago. I'm not. Anyways, I have a house. I keep it up very well. I would say that it's above average for a rental. And I think that with the GDP for the island, this being one of the top 3 things, which is tourism, I think we need to have a short-term rental. I've said this in the last meeting, and I just want to know that, is a single dwelling house going to be grandfathered in like myself? Because last time I asked the question, said how many? Because I still don't understand why we're limiting them. Because I think supply and demand will take its own hold. But everywhere's in the world now does short-term rentals. You can go anywheres in the world, and if I go to anywheres in the world and I want an Airbnb, I don't want to be living with somebody or have somebody's stuff there. Like I look for those rentals that they house people like that. In terms of disturbances, I've had more complaints from my renters about my neighbors than I've had from my neighbors of my renters. So, quick question. Is my rental grandfathered in?
Is it currently operating as a,
100%.
Then
It's
yes.
all through tourism and everything, and
Yeah.
it's going to be grandfathered in because,
Yes.
like I said, guys, like we are 5-star, 10-star, 10 out of 10. We've gotten it every time. Superhost, you know, everything.
Yeah.
So we are the definition of why you would want to come here.
Yeah.
People keep coming back here because of us. Money keeps flowing through this town because of us. And I just want to keep it going. You know, I've got other things I want to keep going in the community too, but I think that we should at least offer this. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you, sir.
Hi, everyone. My name's Greg McDougall. I live on Larkspur Street in Stratford. My question with the grandfathering clause, when it's legally non-conforming, typically that stays with the property and not with the ownership. My question would be, how does it change? You mentioned you're grandfathered in until you sell, and then the new buyer would not be grandfathered in. My question, and it came up recently in Charlottetown, when you sell a short-term rental that you've been writing HST off and it's now an income-producing asset, you would be triggering HST on the sale price. So you're selling that asset plus HST, but if a company coming in or an owner with a HST number coming in that wants to continue running the short-term rental, they can't get the HST back on it. So it's like you're selling a business, but a business can't buy it. So like, do you understand kind of what I mean with the HST
I
implications?
absolutely know what you mean. I think.
So it's, the
yeah.
asset would be, let's say it's 400,000.
Yeah.
Because it was operating as a short-term rental and you were writing HST off on that asset, you would then have to charge HST on the sale price. But if someone coming in couldn't continue running that, then the HST is not absorbed, or it would be a true
Yeah.
expense. And it would be a disadvantage to everyone that's grandfather claused in right now when it goes for them to sell it.
Yeah. From a legal perspective, I think we'll definitely have to look at that.
Sure.
So I appreciate you bringing it up. Secondly, I guess, to the second point, if it's operating as a business, why can't you sell it like one? I think that gets to kind of the whole philosophical discussion about short-term rentals, right? And should it be a business? Or should it be, something forming the long-term housing stock?
Yeah. I know in Charlottetown, anyway, like, there's duplexes in downtown Brighton, and there's a couple that are legally non-conforming. There are R1 zones, there've been a duplex since before they brought in the zoning bylaw. That legally non-conforming trades with the title of the property, and it just doesn't just go away after it trades, if you know what I mean. So I would push that anything in that would legally be grandfathered in with this would trade to a new owner, essentially, as well.
And that may be,
yeah.
and that's certainly something we'll have to look at for sure.
The second question, in terms of fees and whatnot, what percentage, is it a percentage of revenue, or what
It'll
would
be
that look like?
like a permit fee, like a one-time permit
Oh,
fee.
it's a one-time, so it's
Yeah.
not a reoccurring,
No,
every booking
no,
you gotta send
no.
to,
Yeah.
okay,
The fee will have to be reviewed by,
okay.
under the fee review.
And just on the open note as well, I have a Airbnb short-term property, it's on Cottage Lane. There is areas of Stratford, you know, different from Charlottetown, where you have areas that are strictly cottage operations that have been rented for a long time, that, you know, have always been cottages or whatnot. I have real estate clients of mine that are from Prince Edward Island, whether they live out west or whatnot, want to invest in Stratford, want to come home every, you know, summer. They want to own an asset. They want to, you know, inject energy and capital into our local economy. From them, you know, it's not their primary residence. Let's say they live in Calgary. They own a waterfront house in Stratford. They want to buy it for the investment, but when it's not there, they want it to be utilized. Would they be legally allowed to, because it's not their primary residence, to operate a short-term rental?
Well, currently, we're looking at, it's a primary residence, so if that is a question that will, through this, what we heard report, we'll have to go back.
The primary residence, like, it has to be, if they own a primary residence in Calgary, but they don't, this is their primary residence when they're on PEI, is that?
Well, we wouldn't be checking, I guess, in our essence, we wouldn't be able to know if they had residence in Calgary. We
Sure.
don't do that kind of checking.
Okay.
So in essence, we probably see that as a residencing here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and just to pound in the point, the gentleman over here brought it up, there is a lot of people that come in the summer months or whatnot that inject a lot of capital into our local businesses as well. I see when the guests arrive, they go to the Sobeys, they go to the liquor store, they go to, well, formerly Finley's, they go to Lone Oak. The tourists that are staying in our community are injecting a lot of capital and the businesses are benefiting as a result of this as well. And I agree with, there's got to be some sort of bylaw and whatnot to reflect it. It's always been an open market to date, and I feel there's still houses for sale, there's apartments being built, there's some vacant units there. I think, you know, in terms of capping that, could be questioned there, because I think it's important that not necessarily come down on it too hard right out of the gate, but kind of continue to monitor it into the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Yep. Anybody else?
Hi, Patty Butler, 19 Cherry Lane. I guess I just have a couple of comments or questions. I guess the one of them was whether it was a primary residence or not, and whether you folks are going to be looking at maybe changing that particular clause, that it will be anything but a primary residence. Two, it would be really nice to see those clauses that are listed.
Sure.
Especially for the on-site parking locations and stuff. Like, I have no idea what that defines. Also, who or how is the permit application going to be policed? Like, if I'm approaching it as a neighbor, as a community person and as a neighbor, and if I know my next door neighbor is renting, how do I know that they have an application? Especially when there's issues around the rental property. And also about revoking the development or the permit or suspending it. If there's complaints, there's nothing here that says that residents, if there's a real problem, you're not going to revoke the, so I guess that's kind of
Sure.
where I'm at.
Couple of questions in there, so let's maybe just break that down. So I think your first one was about, I just want to make sure we get them all in order there. I'm sorry.
Make sure the primary resident, make
Yeah.
sure it's a primary residence. yeah.
Okay. As Mr. Cardinal noted to the last gentleman who spoke, essentially, we do rely on these applications being completed in good faith and, you know, completed to the best of the knowledge of that person. And so the question, as Mr. Cardinal noted, of primary residence can be somewhat subject to interpretation. And we would expect and anticipate that when somebody lists something as their primary residence, that means their primary residence here on Prince Edward Island.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Then I think your next
And the
question,
next question is basically, yeah, the clauses that are listed, if you could include those instead of us
Cer-
having to go
sure.
through
No.
all the bylaw clauses and all that kind of stuff, that it be in this.
Yes.
But who polices that my next door neighbor has made application and he's got it and it's been approved?
right.
Or that he's paying?
We have two models essentially that we pursue. We do have our own on retainer by law enforcement officer that we do hire. But to be totally honest with you, my expectation is that the amount of proactive enforcement from by law enforcement within the municipality would be challenging, I would suggest. And so we would rely essentially on, reporting from the public, and that we would respond to that. Now, in terms of what that would look like in the form of actual enforcement, certainly there would have to be, as any other investigation, an investigation. And then the provisions of our general offense bylaw would prevail. And essentially, what that could lead to is a revocation from the municipality of that permit.
Okay, yeah, because it just, with the revoking, there's only two specific, suspending or revoking, and it would be kind of nice to have something else included in there if there were complaints filed or called on and,
Do you have anything in mind, or
Pardon me?
do you have any suggestions, or?
I don't know how that would be worded, other than that, I don't know, the next door property owner or anybody around there noticed that things were not copacetic, or that they were parking on somebody else, on their property when they shouldn't be, and stuff like that.
I think we would refer to that as a general complaint, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily want to put anything in the bylaw that it must be the next door neighbor
Yeah,
who is,
no.
or anything along those lines.
Exactly, I don't know what the wording specifically would be, but you're kind of limiting it to just those two.
Enforcement options,
Yeah.
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 Mr. McKeegan, I think you
I'm just going to clarify something, that the short-term rental situation is a two-part process. One is the permit issued by the town. The second is a license issued by the province, which they oversee, so. So we'd work together with the province as well in looking at these things. But as the chair mentioned, we rely a lot on the residents and the people of Stratford to let us know things that haven't gone through a permit process, and we get a lot of calls and different things. So the bylaw enforcement officer would go out to that, or one of the staff would go out to verify some things. So it's an ongoing process, and the more we get into something like this, the better we'll be at it, and also be more, at some point in time, the town will hire a full-time bylaw enforcement officer, because there's a lot of things go on in town, a lot of complaints and incidents, so it takes time.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Shaman Ferrero, 132 Stratford Road. Just want to clarify this primary residence, because it now seems a little confusing to me. If I'm understanding what you said correctly, we're interpreting it as the primary residence in PEI for when people may live abroad but be in PEI?
Well, we have we would only know the residence that you had in Stratford. That's the only one we can check. We can't check anyone else's other residences that they own.
So if my family member does not live in PEI but comes to PEI, say 1 week of the year, they own a house here in Stratford, that is their primary residence when they are here for 1 week of the year. Under section 6257C, I will be the designated property manager, and I can short-term rental their house for 51 weeks of the year?
We do say that regarding the 6 months of the year that they should be the resident, but that is something that we definitely have to look and confirm for you.
Okay, again, would love to see definitions, and, based on that understanding, if somebody can live abroad and own a house here and have that classified as their primary resident for the time that they're here, I again go back to Jordan's point and fail to understand why we limit it, because it seems like a disadvantage to permanent residents who live here year-round to then be limited to one that is their primary residence.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I might just check. Oh, yes, sir.
Greg Hackbert, McDonald Road. I just want to clarify this grandfathered in thing. I don't see it in here as being like,
It's not a clause that we can put in the zoning bylaw because we're honoring the tourism licenses that are in place. this policy will be go for any new applications. So the province has asked us to basically maintain those licenses, and then they're subject to reapplication. So I know there's questions about what is defined as when you're selling on a property, if that's classified as something that needs to be reevaluated. But we are not challenging the 65 units that we know are operating in the town of Stratford. We're not going to,
So every year, you have to get a new license from tourism, right?
yeah.
And you have to get approval from Stratford in order to do it. You guys know that, of course. So when that time comes up,
No, so the province will renew their licenses with you, with the owner. They'll just provide us an update that someone's renewed their license. We won't be asking you to renew a license with the town.
'cause that
We're only
was-
approving the one-time application, and as long as that continues to be that.
So if something like this goes into place, it's not going to be an issue, I guess, with them and so on
No,
and so forth?
no.
Okay, I just don't see it, so that's all. I'm
Well,
asking.
because it would be attached to this bylaw, that would be attached to honoring what's currently in place.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We'll just check with our staff to see if there's any comments coming in from anybody viewing online.
I think Wendy said there wasn't anything.
I saw her come by just a few minutes ago. I haven't received anything electronically. While that's,
I'll check with Wendy.
okay, thank you, sir. So I do have a few prior written submissions that were asked to be read into the record, so I'll do so now. They're all redacted at this point in time, so I cannot identify the writers of these comments. First one, I am writing to submit a formal comment regarding the proposed new short-term rental accommodations bylaw currently under review, specifically in relation to the provision for existing non-principal residence STR operations. While I support the town's objective of protecting the long-term housing supply by implementing a principal residence rule for future STRs, I request that the final bylaw include a clearly defined grandfathering, bracket, legal non-conforming use, and bracket clause for properties that were operating lawfully before the operation of the new regulations. This request is based on legal principles established within provincial statutes, including the Planning Act and legal precedent. Specific request is to urge the town to incorporate a provision that permits the continued legal operation of non-principal residence STRs that can provide clear evidence of having been legally licensed and continuously used. Recognizing these existing legal commercial ventures through a grandfathering clause will allow the town to achieve its housing goals for the future while upholding the legal protection of existing rights. Next one reads, "Good afternoon. Unfortunately, I'm unable to attend tonight. I would appreciate if someone could read these comments attached here too into the record. I have lived in the town of Stratford at various addresses over the last 30 years. I have operated and managed as well as owned businesses and property here in Stratford. I've never once understood that homelessness could be a problem in our community. I'm not sure why this has come to the forefront at this time. One must note that our town does not have any accommodation for travelers whatsoever. We have people coming to our town routinely to visit people in Andrews of Stratford. We have families coming to play at one of the many recreational complexes that continue to grow around our area. It should be understood that people travel to be with family while there are hockey tournaments, soccer tournaments, or any other type of gathering of people from out of town, where attendees must spend the night. These people need an option of a place to stay while they are in our community. When the aforementioned guests to our community are sent back into Charlottetown for lodging, those guests tend to spend travel dollars in the area they spend the night. Dinners and breakfasts of various eateries, necessities, and groceries, as well as services that Stratford offers, remain empty. The owners of these businesses are left to wonder where the economic impact that was promised for each event has evaporated to. Those dollars would be better spent in the area their organization is gathering, i.e. Stratford. At the present time, there is zero lodging opportunity in the town of Stratford outside STRs. I believe it is short-sighted to take issue with the only available accommodations our town has to offer. Should we experience increased homelessness or the need for more housing after our town is able to house people on a short-term basis in places like hotels, motels, inns, etc., only then could I understand how there could be public insight needed to eliminate short-term rentals. At present, short-term rentals are the only option for those traveling on this side of the Hillsborough River. At this present time, it is short-sighted to eliminate this choice for travelers to our area. Please do not make the mistake of eliminating the only places people have to stay in Stratford."
Sure.
Next one. I'm just trying to paraphrase this one as it refers to some personal information that should not be included on the record. Essentially, if the planning board will not consider a revision to the bylaw wording away from primary-only residents, the impact of this will create hardships for property owners, but also for local and provincial economy, and force guests and visitors to other areas of the island or other provinces altogether. And those are the written comments that we have been provided. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to add one thing in that, keeping in mind this is a draft, and we want to get the comments back from everybody in person, online where the case is, and definitions are a key backbone to any document, so we will be providing definitions in more detail. Owner-occupied is a contentious kind of an issue as to what exactly it means, so we'll be looking at this very much more closely on things to make sure that it's providing the definition that it's required to provide to support the bylaw. So again, it's a draft, and we really respect the comments from everybody, so just want to leave it at that and give it back to the chair.
Yeah. Yes, and just in that vein, I would invite and encourage everyone here to file some written submissions should they be so inclined, and you are able to do so until December the 19th, 2025, by email to scarnall@townofstratford.ca to submit those comments. Just to provide everybody with a potential overview of how this is going to go, those comments will be received until 4:30 on Friday, December the 19th. Responses from this public engagement session will be reduced to written form as best they can. We'll incorporate the written submissions. We'll incorporate all of the submissions to date. Be brought to planning board for discussion early in the new year, and to present draft wording for planning board. And if planning board makes such a recommendation, well, one way or another, it'll be for council to make a decision on this draft bylaw, as well as how it might incorporate into the official plan and zoning development bylaw currently underway, which we forecast to be completed sometime in the new year. So I want to thank everybody for attending here tonight. Wish everybody.
I would just like, again, Shaman Ferrer, 132 Stratford Road. I'd like to highlight for the record here tonight, there's not a single individual who stood up in opposition to short-term rentals. There's been multiple people who stood up and questioned limiting to primary residence. So I respect your position and your experience in the town, but I question if the survey is an accurate sample of what this community actually wants. And I would hope you take that into consideration when you put the restrictions on the residents of this town and how we can provide a service to the town in attracting visitors and tourist dollars to Stratford. Thank you.
Anything else, sir? No? All right. As I was saying, I just want to wish everybody a very happy holidays. Thank you very much for coming here this evening, and we look forward to receiving your comments, and we'll see you all in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you.